Hi, my name is Anneleen and I make videos on this channel about books, lifestyle, fashion, and also Taylor Swift. In this video, I will be talking about the Anne of Green Gables books and I will be ranking them. I have recently finished them right before the end of the year and I just want to talk about them more. If you did not know, I have a full series on this channel starting with me unboxing my set of Anne of Green Gables books. I bought the gorgeous Virago Modern Classics edition. You can watch it up there. I also made a reading vlog for each of the books except for the first one because I had already read the first one before I decided to start this series. But because I can't get enough of Anne of Green Gables and Anne with an E and things like that, I just want to keep talking about it. So I'm going to do a definitive ranking of the books. I will go from worst to best, and for the last 5 books I have written a little review in my book journal. I got this from my brother for my birthday and I had already read the first 3. Starting with the 4th book, I've written little reviews in this book and I love it and I will be reading them out loud. Thank God I wrote these in English. Otherwise it would have been difficult for me. Let's just get into it. The worst book in the series, according to me, is Anne of Windy Willows. If you have watched my reading vlogs, this will not be a surprise. This is a gorgeous series, right? Anne of Green Gables, great. The writing style, this goes for all of the books in the series, but the writing style is gorgeous. It is very easy to read and it is very comprehensible, but it creates beautiful imagery in your head, and from time to time there is this beautiful gem of a sentence that just captivates you, you know? So this is true for Anne of Windy Willows or Anne of Windy Poplars. So this book was published about 20 years after Rulla of Ingleside, which is the last book in the series, but it falls between Anne of the Island and Anne's House of Dreams. In terms of the plot. Her and Gilbert are engaged, but she moves to a different school to be the principal there. And this book starts off with a bunch of letters, but there's only letters from Anne to Gilbert, but there are no letters from Gilbert to Anne, which makes it feel very one-sided, and it just feels as if Gilbert does not exist. He doesn't have any feelings or emotions, and she's just separated from all of the characters that we have met before. All of the characters in this book are new, and I will just read you my little review because I think that's all I want you to take away from this. I was sad that this book was focused on Anne in a different community than Avonlea. She was only meddling with other people's lives and writing about it to Gilbert. There was not a single mention of Marilla, or maybe a small one in the margins of the story. There wasn't really any plot, just a string of anecdotes that had the same structure. People are in conflict, Anne interferes, the conflict is resolved. Only once did she make things worse, but we never again met the people from any of the anecdotes. And that is, I think, my biggest gripe with this book, is that it tries to make you care about characters, but the characters never return. We meet them for a couple of chapters, maybe like 2 or 3, and then they just disappear. But the writing style, again, is real. There are some passages in this book that makes it very easy to read Anne as bisexual, which I really like. So there's a positive about that. It has some good moments. Of course, the writing style is still pretty beautiful, but I don't think that you have to read this book in order to enjoy the other books in the series, and I don't think that I will read it again in the future when I'm doing a reread of the whole series. From now on, my reviews will become more positive, don't worry. Then we have Rainbow Valley. This is the 2nd book with all of Anne's children. I will just start off by reading my little review. Just for the record, I gave Anne of Windy Willows 2 stars, and this one I gave 3.5 stars. So there's a big improvement there. This is not going to be as negative as the last review. I'm not sure what I think about this book. Montgomery seems to be an author who introduces characters as if they are main characters and then focuses on different people. At first, Rainbow Valley seems to be about Anne and Gilbert's kids, but then quickly the focus shifts to Mary, and then it shifts again to the Meredith children. It kind of bothers me that expectations were set up and not met in that regard. The characters are very lovable though. So yeah, this book just kind of shifts from main characters to main characters, and usually I don't think that that's a problem, but because we get to know these characters so much and they suddenly stop being the focus of the story, it kind of feels like you were building up to something and then it just kind of falls apart. But the stories in this book are really cute and funny. It is really nice to see how all of these younger people, you know, Anne and Gilbert are not the main focus anymore, how all these younger people are interacting with each other, and there was some lovely character growth in this one. So this is, although it's not my favorite, it is still a really nice read. Then we have Anne of Ingleside. This is also a book that focuses on the next generation, so to speak. And let me just start off with reading my little review for it as well. Anne of Ingleside. A bit of a step down from the amazing Anne's House of Dreams. We will get to Anne's House of Dreams soon. I did really enjoy getting to know Anne's children, although I thought it was weird that they each had their own adventure, except for Shirley, right? Right! Sometimes Shirley's just completely forgotten about, and it feels like he doesn't exist, and this is not solved in Rainbow Valley, the next book in this series. So I don't know. He was only mentioned a handful of times. My favorite chapter is chapter 35. It has female rage. Chapter 35 is amazing. It is about a woman at the funeral of her brother-in-law, and her sister has already passed away, I believe. But she has a lot of resentment towards the brother-in-law. She just does not think that he treated her well, and you know, by reading it, it doesn't sound like he did. So she becomes so frustrated at the funeral. She makes a speech, and it is truly very powerful, and it just goes to show that even if you don't know a character very well, Lucy Maud Montgomery can make you feel for them. And that is kind of what I missed in the other books that I've talked about. Like, you do meet these characters and they're only there for a short amount of time, but you don't really get a chance to know them, and you also don't really feel for them. Whereas here in this book, she does show that she very well can do that. So this book is a little bit more of the same of Rainbow Valley. I feel like Anne of Ingleside and Rainbow Valley are very similar. They focus on the next generation. All of the kids have like their own little anecdote, which is nice because we do get to know them a little bit. And it is clear that all of these kids have different personalities and things like that. And I give this book 4 stars out of 5. All of the books that I'm going to talk about now are 4 or 5 stars out of 5. So it's only gonna go up from here. Anne of Avonlea is probably my 5th favorite book. I had to check on how many books we were at the moment. I have to admit that I don't remember a lot of the things that happen in Anne of Avonlea. I don't have a written review as I did for the previous books that I talked about, but I do remember that I did enjoy this a little bit less compared to the first book in the series. This is the second book in the series. Anne becomes a teacher, and Gilbert is a teacher. All of the other characters are teachers as well. We still are in that Avonlea community. We have the familiar characters. Some new ones are introduced, and this book really shows you how much Anne cares about different people and how she wants to do good. This book also is like one of the first times where Lucy Maud starts with the people are not always what they seem theme. She does that in a lot of the books. Mr. Harrison is a cranky man who lives next door to Anne, and he is just kind of not really down with the Avonlea people. No one really likes him, but Anne strikes up a friendship with him, and it's actually really nice to read about. So this is just kind of like a feel-good, warm, fuzzy feelings. Not a lot happening, but it's still really cute. And I do really like the introduction of Miss Lavender and her son or stepson that she has. It is really a really nice sub-story, and I wish that they had appeared more often. Number 4 is Anne of the Island. This is the book where Anne and Gilbert finally get together. It takes 3 books, and it is frustrating, but it's a very good slow burn. This is kind of like the romance book. Anne has a beau called Roy. Gilbert has a girl. We're not sure if they're dating or whatever, but rumors are flying around, and There's just a lot of intrigue. I do believe that it is in this book where Anne gets proposed to like 3 or 4 times. Maybe some of them happened in Anne of Avonlea, but I'm not sure entirely. But this is just a very good one. Anne is at university, she hangs out with friends, she lives in this house with 2 other girls, but there's 2 older ladies living there, and they kind of give them advice or speak their mind about whatever they're doing. And it's actually a really fun read. This is the first 5-star book that I'm going to be talking about. So all the other books have 5 stars as well, but this is just a fun one to read. Now, we're on to the top 3, and I have to admit that this was difficult, but number 3 is Anne of Green Gables, the first one in the series. Of course, this is the introduction to Anne, Marilla, Matthew, Diana, Gilbert, all of these amazing characters, and it is just really fun. All of the characters are really complicated. If you've watched Anne with an E, just start reading this. You will feel that it has the same heart. Book number 2 is Anne's House of Dreams. This, for a very long time, was my favorite in the series. Anne and Gilbert live together for the very first time. They have moved to a different town, and it's just so heartwarming. I will just read you my little review, because that's where my thoughts are at the moment. That's all I want to say. This might be my favorite book in the series so far. It is miles better than Anne of Windy Willows, just a little burn there. I love the new characters, and because there is only a small cast of important characters, we have the time to get to know them well. I like the way this book deals with tragedy, and I thought the plot twist was hilarious. Leslie is a captivating character, and I enjoyed the depiction of her inner conflict. Yes, I agree to everything I just said. Leslie is an amazing character. She's spiteful, but she's also very kind. She has these complicated feelings that she doesn't really know how to deal with them. The plot twist that I'm talking about is that Leslie had been taking care of her husband, who had had an injury a few years ago, I believe 12 years ago. While he was away, he was missing for about a year, I think, and when he came back, he wasn't the same. He had become overweight and he had some brain damage, so he didn't behave the way that he used to. And at one point, Gilbert is like, we could give him surgery and they might actually be able to reverse the brain damage. I'm not sure how medically correct that is, but it happens, and it turns out that this man that she had been living with for 12 years was her husband's cousin. Her husband had died 12 years earlier in a fight or whatever. I don't even remember how he died. But I thought that was hilarious. I was like, how do you come up with that? I don't know why it makes me laugh so much, because it's really not that funny, but I thought it was so absurd. Because one of the key identifiers of this man is that he has heterochromia, so that his eyes are not the same color. And so his cousin has the same thing. I'm like, what are the odds? You know, how could you expect this to be the case, really? It's kind of like in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Also, I do not support J.K. Rowling. Barty Crouch Jr., right, is the bad guy, but right at the beginning of the book, we are told that he's dead. So there's like no reason to think that it might be Barty Crouch Jr. And this is the same thing that happens in this book. They're like, it is her husband, he has the eyes. And then like 300 pages later, it's like, psych, it was his cousin all along. Because they mention a brother, so you're like, is it his brother? No, it's his cousin. And just the slow burn between Leslie and Owen Ford was really good as well. I love a good slow burn. The second one in the series, really good. And then finally, my number 1 favorite is Riddle of Ingleside. Anne and Gilbert don't really appear a lot in this book. They are, of course, characters in it, but they don't have a major part to play. And this book is focused on the First World War and how it affects the women staying behind. And as I said in my reading vlog, I felt such a strong connection to Rilla because I do believe that this COVID situation that we're going through is what you could call our generation's World War. And so this book is about women staying behind and just kind of making sure that things don't fall apart at the home front. And that's kind of what I'm doing as well. My partner is a doctor. He works at a COVID department. So what I do is I stay at home and I do a lot of traditionally feminine things. I cook, I go to the grocery store, I clean. Not that I'm the only one doing this. Whenever he has the time, he helps me out, but it does feel like sometimes I should be doing more. But actually, I'm doing one of the most important things. I'm making sure that this doctor can keep going and make sure that all of these people are safe, just like how these women in this book are trying to make sure that the soldiers can keep going. They organize these events for these soldiers, and I don't think that if I read this book maybe 2 years ago, I don't think I would have connected with it as much as I do, but Rilla is honestly one of my favorite characters. It is really a very good book. I will quickly read you my little review to end this video with. This is the best book in this series. I love seeing Rilla grow up and become a great person. Even when she's 10 years younger than I am and lived 100 years ago, she felt so relatable to me. Even though there is a war going on, we still had times to enjoy the small and beautiful things in life. As opposed to other books in the series, the war gave us something to look forward to. The end of it. Yes, I think that would be a critique of this series in general, is that because we're just kind of following Anne's life, there is no real purpose. I think that is why I liked Anne of the Island, because we knew that Gilbert was going to ask her to marry her, right? It had to happen at some point. So we did have some sort of end goal that we were moving towards. And it was the same with Rilla of Ingleside. We knew that the war was going to end, and I figured out that that would be the end of the book. And that all of the soldiers came back, and it was really satisfying. You can see my genuine reaction to the ending in my reading vlog. I get a little bit emotional. I have a little cry about it, but that's the beauty of books, right? When they make you feel things. I will wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching. One of the commenters, Rosemary, commented that there is another book in the series that I will probably tackle as well. I think it's called The Blythes Are Quoted. It came out in 2009, so I might get on to reading that as well. I haven't really looked for it, so I don't know if there's a nice edition for it, but I'll get my hands on it eventually. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will probably start by rewatch of Anne with an E, and I might talk about that in the future as well. What is your favorite Anne of Green Gables book? Let me know. I would love to chat about it. And I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!